making our Christmas memories. I've been working so much lately, I can barely find the time to sleep. Yeah, I spend my time running around, keeping people pleased. But this is my favorite holiday. It's a chance to start over new. 'Cause I missed you, so I'm letting go of everything but you. These are the good times with you. Baby, this year it's just gonna be you and me. Hang by the fire and chill. Isn't this how it's supposed to be? Making our Christmas memories. Oh, and I've been longing to hold you close. Forget about everyone else. Isn't this how it's supposed to be? Making our Christmas memories. Oh, oh, la da da da, oh, 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 la da da da, oh, oh, la da da da. Making our Christmas memories. I've been wrapping presents for you. I've been hanging marbles in the tree. And I've lit my house with Christmas lights. So you should come back home to me. And when we wake up in the morning, I'm gonna play those carols that you love. We'll be singing all the melodies until 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Live from the Rob Christensen Radio Network Satellite Studio, it's Jim and Rob Overanalyze the Movies. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Jim and Rob Overanalyze the Movies, the video podcast for the folks who love to talk about movies as much as they love watching them, and perhaps a little more. Tonight we are going to be taking a look at George Clooney's latest directorial actor, director, producer effort, The Midnight Sky, actually based on a book by, and if I can pull this up, based on the book by Lily Brooks-Dalton, Good Morning Midnight. And yes, there is an affiliate link below. Anywho, with that much out of the way, let's get rid of that and let's get the trailer going.
Come in, Ether. This is Barbo Observatory. Are you receiving this? Is anyone out there?
This is Ether. Does anyone copy? We're not receiving anything.
That puts our last contact with Mission Control at
3 weeks.
Why is it so quiet?
That's Ether. It's a spaceship that we hoped would be our future. I have to warn them about the conditions on Earth. I don't know all the details. It started with a mistake. There is an antenna that's stronger than ours. We get to that antenna, they'll hear us. Take a deep breath. In our galaxy alone, there are billions of stars. At least one of them has the potential to support life.
I'm thinking a lot about time. Why one person lives a lifetime and another only gets a few years. We made a promise to our families.
You want to be an explorer.
Cut to my voice!
But while you're doing all that, your own life is just slipping away.
That's why I have to contact them. Before it's too late.
before it's too late. All right, there you go. Pretty heavy stuff. Anyway, before we get into the meat of the conversation, I bring my awesome co-host in. Let's get the ideological ingredients out of the way. First of all, does it pass the Bechdel test? Yes, if memory serves. Barely, but yes, it does. Could it earn a reframe stamp? 100% no. Does it have any class? Is it class conscious? No. And, well, you know what? Without consciousness, you can't have an analysis. So it doesn't have any class analysis either. With that out of the way, why don't I bring on my co-host with the most, Mr. Jim Chaboyko. Hey, Jim, how you doing?
Dandy.
That's awesome to hear.
A little miffed now that George Clooney has a beard now, too. So, I mean... They've caught on in Lake Como, I think, but
and a glorious one too. Like, I mean,
catching up to
what's
us.
This scrubby thing?
He took our cue. He's obviously been tuning in. So
a fan of the show.
Everyone has a beard. Well, not everyone. Kyle Chandler and Spanish guy. Well, none of the crew did. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah. Moving on. Yes, he was the only male. All right, before we, Jim, it looks like before we get into the meat of it, first of all, I think it's really important for folks to understand that, yes, we are in the spoiler zone. And, when I say we, I mean you. We're in the spoiler zone, folks, so keep that in mind as we get into this flick, especially as there is a bit of a twist. So not I would say plot defining, but a nice little hook at the end. And what else, Jim? I think we got some folks in the chat. Why don't we say hi to them first? I saw right off the bat, Shashank saying hello to everyone else, including Vlad65.
Hey, Vlad.
And Richard and Katie are in the house. Hey. Good to see. All right. And a quick comment, Jim, before apparently Richard was saying that in an interview, Clooney said he shaved it off afterward. It was only for the movie. So I guess you and I and our trademark.
Yeah.
Such that it is. Or even Richard. Now Richard's got a glorious beard, like almost Festival de Voyageur worthy. And we will. There'll be an opportunity to explain that to our out of Winnipeg folks later in the show. All right, Jim. Why don't we make sure this music isn't too loud? And if the music I've got going on is too loud, I please let me know. Oh, look at this. We got one more person we should say hi to. The Upside Dan. Yo, Dan. All right, folks.
I just saw Dan on Cody's year-end review, so that was yes. Very cool to see.
Yeah, that was yeah. Like, I mean, yeah, it's been an interesting end to the year. And you're right, Jim. Like I was on. Folks, you've seen Cody from the Brock-Up side on the show before, and that's a great cue, Jim, to remind everyone, December 30th, our plan is to have an end-of-year show. Won't be looking at a particular movie. We're more going to talk about, our faves, our less than faves, chit-chat about some of the news. But yes, Cody, and you know what? I'll pin a link to it. Cody did a great review rewind, including our show had a little spot. I got to talk about how we were affected and what YouTube was like for us. So I think it's worth checking out, Jim?
Yeah, it was very cool. It was, and Cody was kind enough to shine the spotlight on other people too. He basically introed it, and said, to other YouTubers, what did 2020 mean to you? And I thought it was very generous and very sweet natured year-end video. So.
All right. With that out of the way, Jim, what? Oh, this is an interesting. Well, you know what? We'll get into comments in a second. Okay, Jim, what was your what did you think?
Yeah, I just actually finished watching it in the last hour or so. And throughout the movie, I was trying to sort of determine a couple of things.
Whoops. Sorry, man.
That's okay. George Clooney's already been to space, clean shaven that time. But although his character wasn't exactly in space, but in this movie. But I was he's obviously interested. He also did Solaris, right? A few years ago, a number of years ago now. And so he's quite open to doing science fiction and speculative fiction. All the hunky guys, are getting in on it now, Brad Pitt et al. But while I was watching it, a lot of the shots were almost of the undercarriage of the Imperial Destroyer type of shots. Like, you're supposed to revel in the wonder of it, and I kind of wonder if this was more meant for a big screen. Apparently, it had been released.
It did have a limited big screen release. Yeah,
I suspect that's for Oscar contention. Although I'm not sure if they've changed the rules on that now. It's also interesting to see the Wikipedia page. It says $100 million budget, and it says box office 62,000. But that's just so far.
Yeah.
So it's a little misleading. It was good. We'll get into the details, I guess. But I thought it was a little bit of a pile-on in terms of, okay, he's got cancer, or he's something
whatever,
dialysis or whatever, and then he loses it, and then he almost freezes to death. And I coming from a cold climate as well, I'm not sure I can square it's a winter storm, but the ice is breaking. Maybe it's the time of year. There's some inconsistencies there. But anyway, that's a whole other kettle of fish. It was good. It was a bit of a pile-on, though, in terms of misery and hurdles. And I sort of thought I should probably watch The Martian again, because that one seemed to work. And maybe that was all just based on the charm of Matt Damon. And yet it was sort of similar in that it's just like one thing after the other. One problem, and then they're in space, and Matt Damon gets wrapped up in cords and the whole bit. So... it was just a bit of a pile-on. Not a bad movie. I was sort of expecting to get a bit twisty at the end. I wasn't sure exactly how. But what did you think of it?
I really enjoyed it, Jim. I got to tell you, I really liked it. It certainly has its problems. And maybe later, just to put a pin in it, I really disagree with the politics of this Planet B backup thing. Like, I really dislike it. That said, within the confines of the show, I didn't feel the pile-on. I thought they were expected, because you've got any of these kind of movies, they are, whether it's out in space or here on the planet, they're all a part of the genre they dip into is the man versus nature. And what can nature throw at you? And especially in this, where there's no person protagonist, what do you got? You got the weather, even the wolves, it's like, wow, they're surviving way up north on nothing. But couldn't, throw a polar bear at the guy.
Yeah.
And then, Jim, I agree with you. Coming from here, getting wet and our fellow Canadians, especially those who come from colder provinces, will get this viscerally. It's all I could think of is when he got wet, and I want to say it was a midpoint downer. Like, your typical, okay, first act, we set it up, and then he goes, and it's kind of doing well. Well, something's got to blow up at the midpoint to kind of make it real. Oh, the stakes rise. But I all I could think of is, oh, he's effed. He is not surviving. He was soaking wet in minus whatever. I don't care if he was able to put some clothes on. He's done. That said, his journey, him and the Iris and the actress's name, the young actress's name, I'm going to mispronounce the first name because I didn't look it up. My bad. Probably Caoilinn or Caoilinn or something. Springall. Played the little girl, played little Iris. I was owned by it. I was like owned by the emotion, owned by his drive to reach out to these folks. And in some ways, Jim, I don't know about you, I almost saw the space stuff as a weak Martian, and I was more invested in George Clooney and his struggle to warn them in time. And by the end of it, I was quite weepy. Actual tears, got really kind of choked up as we know what's happening. And I did, as much as I don't like these, because the other part of this movie, it's an end of the world movie. It's not a dystopia. And there was some terrible, and I'll pull it up on the screen, Jim. I found, Rotten Tomatoes gave it a really awful. You see there, 53%, 26% for the audience. And there's a part of me kind of going, what movie did you see? Although, who knows, maybe the vast majority of the folks in the chat feel the same way. But I was like, no, it's an end of the world movie. There is no saving any. The people who are going to die, and that's George and the little girl. And I was like, how are they going to resolve that? There is the twist, which we don't have to reveal immediately. But I got choked up. I found it a very poignant end, and I was like, this is a good movie. And not that we did it on purpose, Jim, but what a great movie to end 2020 with. There's a sliver of hope, but boy, what a bummer of an end. Although not like a down, I wouldn't call it a down note end. It does end, life finds a way, or whatever. The children are saved, so I give it higher points than you do. Now, who knows though, I may feel differently in a few months. This may be, sometimes you see a movie and it really hits you at the right spot. I actually watched this Christmas morning, and it just hits you right. And then 3 months later, so what the was I thinking? But yeah, right now, I'm giving it above average marks. Yeah. All right. Well, what do we got the chats really firing. Let's see what their first take was. All right, kind of jumping ahead here. Vlad, hi from the grumpy one. All right. Now, Shashank says he saw the movie this morning, and it's what he calls an airplane movie. And Shashank, love to hear how do you describe that? Like the movie you watch on an airplane, that kind of thing. Anyway, please, let us know what you mean by that. Then some back and forth. Another compliment for Cody, the Brock Upsides YouTube thing. Vlad finds the music just coming in a little hot on Jim, so I can pull back a little. Thank you very much, Vlad. I appreciate that. Okay. More about Cody's chat. I should be pulling it up. We could review that as well. Okay. Yeah, Vlad referring to another George in space. Gravity. Oh, here's Richard, a fellow Winnipegger. Yes, and you don't take a 1 to 2 minute dip in the Arctic Ocean and just walk it off. No, you don't, folks. Shashank, Jelly Duck comes. Vlad, I think you're in Canada. You know what? I suspect Yeah, it's no, don't get wet. All right. Vlad 65 says many negative comments on IMDb about the water scene. Oh, you're not late. You're early, Jelly Duck.
Yay! Middle East representing.
All right. Oh, Jelly Duck does not feel positively about this. Well, it kind of looks like the bad movie in 2020.
I wonder if he means that 2020 is a bad movie.
Oh, perhaps you're right there.
Just came up. I don't know if you've seen, Rob, the ad where it's a dating app ad, and the devil is meeting a girl and saying, "I wish this year would never end."
Yeah.
2020. Oh, just call me 2020.
That's a nice. I think it's Match.com or some dating website. Done by the production company that Ryan Reynolds is involved in some way. I don't know if he owns it or is a supporter. It's like gin, commercial production, acting. We're a Ryan Reynolds Corporation. It's like Reynolds Wrap, but different. Okay, Richard says, I mostly like the movie and like the genres, but some parts a little predictable. Which crew member was going to die? And thought the astronaut characters are too cowboyish. I think that's what do you think, Jim? I think that's for me, fair assessment.
I thought it was interesting, the tonal shifts between what was happening on Earth with, because Clooney was, kind of barely functioning, Clooney's character, Lofthouse, and the astronauts at that point, even though they hadn't been in contact with the Earth for weeks, they were a little bit sort of like, hey, like they were very loose and very casual. Maybe it was sort of one of those things is if you keep loose, it doesn't, it sort of negates some of the anxiety. But I thought that there was a real distinct tonal difference, probably on purpose, between the spaceship and the weather station.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I could have done with less of the spaceship and more of Clooney, but I do want to, and I'm not just mentioning it again. I'm not just mentioning it again because it fits my financial interest. But I think I'm going to pick up this book. Affiliate link in the description below. Because I'd like to see what drew these folks to this property. What was it about the written story that was such that they're like, this is the one we want to adapt. This is The Martian. Our Martian, but with feeling. All right, let's get back to the chat for a sec. Oh, go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
I was just going to say I saw comparisons to this and Emily St. John Mandel's Station 11, which I read this summer, and I don't. It sort of feel like they're from the same era, kind of, but another sort of end of the world-y kind of thing. And,
gotcha. Vlad 65 says, I compared this film to War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise. Human species in jeopardy, all to show what a great dad can be. Like War of the Worlds a lot more. Liked War of the Worlds a lot more. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that, but I didn't. I'm gonna put a pin on this. I see where you're coming from, Black 65. I wasn't sure I was quite reading it that way. Were you, Jim?
You know, I don't know how many different movies I wrote down while I was watching this in my notes, but War of the Worlds didn't come up for me. It's just amazing how when you watch a movie, it triggers memories of about a dozen other things, you know, generally. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously issues.
I thought of I Am Legend.
Fatherhood. Oh yes, yeah.
Although that really is a post-apocalypse, not a end of the world flick.
I also thought a little bit about Life, as you know, that it's a horrible title, but speaking of Ryan Reynolds, he's in that. Gyllenhaal, who else is in that? Basically, the spaceship.
Oh, and they bring back, yeah.
And it doesn't sort of end well for anybody, but
you know what that does remind me of is that space vampire movie, Life Force, from when we were kids.
Wow, that's a deep dive. I had the Lego.
Yeah. All right. Okay. You know what? We'll come, Vlad. I thanks for that. Yeah, I'm. You know, that's an interesting view. I didn't quite see him as. I didn't quite see it like that, but I kind of see. I see it a little more that way now. So thanks for bringing that up. Shashank chimes in. Boy, the chat is chatty.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Basically, Shashank. Basically, what I meant is a film that you enjoy while it's playing, but forget the moment it's over. Okay. I've had experiences like that watching movies on airplanes. Awesome. I think that should become like a, Shashank's particular contribution, much like the baby test. This will be Jim and Rob overanalyze movies. Is it an airplane movie? Is this what we're talking about? Yeah. Thanks for giving us some clarification on that. Goes a little deeper. Awesome, man. Okay, Richard. Richard L. says, Hollywood always casts cowboys as spacecraft personnel. Cowboys are fine on the range, but too risky to have on a spacecraft and would be 100% screened out. Yeah. I would agree with that. What do you think, Jim?
Well, I think in this case, and it kind of sounds ridiculous, but I think you have to differentiate between space
cowboys,
astronauts, and then soldiers, because the first thing I think of is Aliens 2, and how they're all just a bunch of sort of coked up bros wanting to take out aliens, you know.
Well, I don't think that was as much a space movie as that was Vietnam on another planet.
Yeah.
You know, as any Vietnam movie on another planet.
That is sort of a not movies as space movies as Vietnam, but just generally the soldier in space, like Starship
Troopers,
those kinds of things, where it's almost like a war movie. Yeah. You follow a group from training or landing to further on in the adventure. Yeah. But I think now if you watch the Tom Hanks Apollo. Help me out here. 8?
Apollo
11?
13. Look at 13.
And I think they're a little bit more precise and exact. They're probably more responsible. You know, they might have a bit of a twang, but I don't think they're literal cowboys in that way. They're probably more space guys.
I agree with you. I mean, these guys were too cowboy. It was restrained, but I think I agree with you. I agree with Richard. And I did think of this, especially when played by Kyle Chandler, the Mitchell character is, well, I'm not doing that. And it's like, The Martian, I think, did a pretty damn good job at kind of showing how they all listen to the person in charge. They're actually they're all cool under pressure. Mm-hmm. You know, the woman played by Tiffany Boone, Maya, the Maya character, and we're worried. It's the first time she's outside, and I'm like, I don't see NASA ever. She's never been outside, like outside of the ship. It's like, yeah, I'm not buying that. Which is, and again, another reason why myself. So yeah, I'm with you both on this. Richard does go further. Personnel would be engineers and PhDs trained to follow military orders, even at the cost of their life. I suppose it might be harder for audiences to relate to those people, or for drama to be inserted. I'm not quite sure they're not like fanatics. I think they're all just super chill people. Like, they're really good at finding people who can be with other people calmly and chilly in a tin can for a year or more. Mm-hmm. Like, that seems to be their psychological screening, not so much for push the button, turn the key thing, but just being chill.
Yeah.
You know, knowing their role, working through problems. There's no, when are you going to get that med pack to us? It's like, first of all, I didn't think there'd be that much mileage to cover.
Yeah.
Again, why I enjoyed the George Clooney part more. Just more emotional heft. You know, this is like kind of, I'm not really buying that. Wouldn't there be a med pack where they'd think there'd be problems?
Yeah.
The airlock, for instance. The 1 minute, the time's ticking, she's dying. She's bleeding out, man.
If you remember, or if you've seen First Man, about Neil Armstrong with our own Ryan Gosling, he's a lot cooler. Like, he's almost distant, like the George Clooney character. Yeah. Like, he's sort of untouchable and not particularly communicative, and just sort of on, a little bit in dreamland there, but attentive, but there's a distance there,
Yeah, I like it, but no, like they had to amp it up a little in Apollo 13. You hear the actual tapes, the actual recordings of those astronauts. As there was an onboard explosion, they're like, Houston, we have a problem. Check. Stand by. It's just calm, chill, go through the little checklists, figure it out, tell us what we need to do. Like, they're all just, like, they're super calm, Yeah, like, so the, whereas the, kind of, actually, Jim, it reminds me I believe it's called Annihilation. Was that sci-fi, The Glimmer, with Natalie Portman and and you talked about with the guys, and if it was all guys, there'd be that moment of posturing who's in charge. And I wouldn't say that there's posturing about who is in charge, but here in this one there's some posturing, that masculine posturing.
There's a really good, I think I've recommended it before, but there's a really good podcast called 13 Minutes to the Moon that's put out by BBC, and they actually they analyze the transcript of the landing, and they tell you who's who, and which one's excitable, and which one's a little bit mellow, and who's, so it's a super deep dive, but it's
worth the time.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
Jim, can you let's put a pin in that. Maybe we could throw that in a pinned reference in the description later. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Ahmed is screwing with us, I believe, Jim. He's wondering what George Clooney looks like. Here, I can show part of him right there.
That's a great poster, by the way.
His glorious beard.
That's the one that's on the Wikipedia page. It's quite a nice one.
Yeah. All right. Katie. She says the movie poster was misleading. Where are the Northern Lights?
They've landed. That was the problem. They finally got here.
Yeah. speaking of it, for everyone here, did for the folks who've seen the show, for you, Jim, I'm kind of curious. Was anyone? I found I was a little bugged by the fact that they just the event, and they didn't. I could have done with some explanation, just a little more than the air is bad, and the bizarro view of the world where it's like I don't think anything would look like that, Anyway, I'm kind of curious. What?
It's sort of a technique, I think, that they often use in this type of writing, so as to not detract from the story, I think, or to kind of cover up, their lack of knowledge, but and also to as a detour around 2 or 3 months of research that they would probably have to do. But typically, I think it's kind of entertaining to try to figure out what happened. George Clooney said that it was an accident. It obviously involved radiation, so I don't know, something to do with the Hadron Collider. He says uneducatedly.
Except there's all these clusters.
Yeah.
It's like an event of global scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes in other books, they spell out a few more things so you can kind of figure it out. This one, not so much. I think you got about 2 or 3 clues. They did mention Winnipeg. I don't know if you saw the
Winnipeg.
I
did not catch that play.
It was at the very 10 or 15 minutes when Clooney's looking at a map, and it's sort of, the map itself is sort of Google Earth like sort of traveling northward, and there's Winnipeg right in the middle there. So
cool.
Yes.
All right, to the back to the chat. Shashank, I felt that we needed a bit more of a backstory for Clooney's character. He didn't root for him. Having said that, the relationship between the girl and Clooney was very well done. You know what? Here, let me I should get on the screen here. Shashank, I can't say you're wrong. But I do think we did get that backstory, in the whole the younger man and his no, I'm focused on the work and I'm going to save humanity. So I'm going to ignore my girlfriend and, we maybe had a child together. Oh, it looks like we did have a child together. I thought that backstory was enough. Like, actually, you know what? It's kind of like when I'm talking about, I don't need a super detailed explanation of what the event is. I just need a little bit so I'm not thinking about it as we're moving forward in the movie. More just a kind of, I needed a little check mark there. Whereas I felt we got enough of his backstory to kind of get his motivation and then emotional hook at the end. But Shashank, if it wasn't working for you, it wasn't working for you. I'm wondering for everybody else in the thing, or they feel the same way as Shashank does. It's like you needed more to root for George.
Yeah, I sort
Do
of
we have to root in, and because we don't actually get his name until the end. Like we're not explicitly told. They did some good voice work, but we're not explicitly told that the younger man and George Clooney are the same character. And if you miss that, all of a sudden this movie's a totally, and I don't mean you miss it like you're wrong. More if it didn't communicate that, this movie's a different experience and not in a positive way. Oh, here's an interesting comment again from Shashank. Remind him of Oblivion in a weird way. I thought of Oblivion, Jim, and your comment about it's like Omni. In the production design of these of that super slick, modern, high-tech space they're in with the big windows, and I'm like, again, We're from the northern. It's like, yeah, I don't see that happening up north. There's a window that'll break.
Yeah.
There's a hard way to keep heat in.
So, which one's Oblivion again?
Oblivion with Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise, Olga Kurylenko, and the British woman. Fudge, I can't remember. Perhaps somebody from the Balmoral Street Research Irregulars will chime in on that. All right, but what did you think, Jim, on what Shashank's saying about that Oblivion reference?
I'd have to watch Oblivion again. It's sort of lost to me.
An airplane movie for you?
I'll give you a couple others that it reminded me of in the sense that no one's in charge, and there's actually no.
Everybody's on their own.
Well, and there's no higher power that's going to kind of come and get you. There's two things that it reminded me of. Last night I was up a little bit late and just sitting downstairs with my daughter. We were just chatting, and TCM was playing the Poseidon Adventure, and like the original.
Okay.
And it's actually and my daughter, who's not of the generation that's going to be watching Poseidon Adventure probably, unless we force her to. She said, "Wow, this looks like it costs money," when the ship sort of goes over. So she was sort of impressed by that, and I thought,
"Oh, which Poseidon Adventure is the old one, the original, the OG?" Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And I thought, if you like that, wait till you see Gene Hackman as a priest. So sort of nobody's in charge of that. He says to the purser, I watched it for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
He says to the purser at one point, "There's no one coming to rescue us. We're at the bottom of the ship. We got to sort of do it on our own." And there's a big sort of a do-it-yourself kind of theme.
And as we've learned about shipwrecks, even here on this planet, is a fair chunk of the time the captain and crew are going to bugger off and leave the passengers in charge.
Exactly. And the other thing that it reminded me of was the HBO series Avenue 5, something else with a horrible name, but it's a spaceship, a cruise ship. It's a spaceship in the future, lost in space. It sort of took the wrong orbit, and instead of a 2-week or 3-week cruise, it becomes about a 6 or 7 year cruise, and they're all stuck on this, and there's sort of nobody in charge.
An upscale, incompetent Gilligan's Island.
There's the science officers no one listens to. The captain's an actor. The rich guy's an idiot, and the guy who owns the whole thing is an idiot, and the people on board, they're just a sort of an angry mob. So it's sort of a couple of things that this a little bit reminded me of, just in a tertiary way.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get back to the comments. Excuse me. Terrible belch. My apologies, folks. Okay. Vlad65, going back to the fatherhood reference, and I'm grooving on what you're saying here, Vlad. Fatherhood was quite large in both this and War of the Worlds at the end. In that, I think you're kind of like when the young boy, the teen boy, his son, Tom Cruise's War of the Worlds character's son, buggers off, and it's just him and the little girl, and it gets super perilous, much like this, and post the falling in water, and then the wolves, these magical wolves, again, not a polar bear to be seen, but wolves. Wolves.
And crows.
I get where you're coming from there, Vlad. Yeah. And crows. Yeah. Oh, that's right. They got blown up. It's happening too quickly. What the,
or
the ugliest.
They flew. I was thinking maybe they were there and they flew out of it up north. Who knows?
Yeah. All right. Now, Richard commented to Vlad, didn't see War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise, but Hollywood does seem to try and insert the great dad trope into a lot of space movies. I'm wondering if, that sort of comes with the territory of maybe not, but any of those. Is it space movies or end of the world movies, or the world is at threat? Because you see it in, like, I mean, as Richard's commenting on this, I was like, I immediately thought of Armageddon, which really went over the top with that. Like, I mean, boy, just taking the sledgehammer to that poor nail. So I kind of see what you're saying. Now, Katie agrees with Shawshank on the airplane movie analogy. Ahmed is space in Vietnam. How did they invade it? Ahmed, what I recommend is see Aliens, not Alien, the first movie, but Aliens. It really is, came out in the 80s. It really is it's a Vietnam War movie, just set in space, set on another planet. See that movie, it sets everything up here. Whereas here, this is not in any way similar. Like, especially really the spaceship, they're barely in space in Aliens. They land, all their action happens on, their ship is basically automated. Which actually, you think about it, that's most of space travel, automation. All right. Vlad says, remember Clint gave us Space Cowboys? He did. And it was all that blustering, posturing thing with some old men. Old white men going, I'm still relevant.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Yeah. Okay, Shawshank, I think if the movie came out in any, not quite, in any, I wouldn't get into it, but this film had some staying power. Seems relevant in the times we live in. Yeah. Again, a little more explanation on the event that really does trigger everything, And I am a little shocked that NASA wouldn't have given a little ringy dingy.
Yeah.
Up to the
By the way,
Vlad, lol, yes, from Richard. Okay, Richard L. What were you about to say, Jim? Sorry.
No, I was just keying into the last thing.
Okay, Richard L. I liked The Martian. Thought it was more science-based and less cowboyish. Yeah, there was no cowboy. Going back to that super hyper NASA thing,
I think the big quote that came out of it was, I'm going to science the shit out of this.
Yeah, the most cowboy. Yeah. Shawshank makes comment about Kyle Chandler's portrayal. Is it just me, or does Kyle Chandler play Kyle Chandler in every movie? He seems so typecast. He could very well be suffering from typecast. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I haven't seen everything he's been in, but he's the sort of, often the Midwestern, competent man. I can't remember. Was it called Early Edition? He was in this TV show about a guy who used to get a magical newspaper. Am I wrong about this? Every morning.
Yes. Early Edition, it was called. Yes. Early Edition.
He got this magical newspaper that would have a headline, and it was his job to prevent the headline from happening. Usually it was something bad, and it was his job to sort of get in the way or something like that, which sounds on paper like a disaster, but it's, kind of interesting, I guess.
Would you agree with me, Jim, that he really was in that? It was like he was a Paul Rudd character.
Yeah. Like Paul Rudd's more kind of serious brother, but yeah.
I know. I'm talking about in that show.
In that show?
In that show, there's a lot looser.
A little more loose, yeah.
Yeah, like it was just a friendlier gig, He
was the coach in Friday Night Lights about football for years, for those who don't know high school football. I guess he's always sort of an authority figure. I was a little bit confused because it sounded like he was ordering. I was under the impression in this movie that David Oyelowo.
Oyelowo.
David O. David O. He was
Oyelowo.
Oyelowo.
Yeah. Anyway, continue.
He sort of said, we're not going back to K-23. And I thought David was in charge, not
He
you.
is in charge.
Yeah.
That was the whole posturing
Yeah.
point we did not need.
Yes. Yeah.
Could have been dealt with straight and been as emotionally impactful.
And that was sort of the part that reminded me of Poseidon Adventure, because it was Gene Hackman and Ernest Borgnine at the start anyway, in a real pissing contest. That was sort of like Borgnine had an issue with everything that Hackman said. He goes, "Who are you? Some kind of leader or tough guy?" And it follows him anyway.
Yeah. Well, and that goes back to that posturing that some movies insist on having. Now, that also could be that the talent, because, you get so many characters in a room and they are actors. They got to react to each other. So somebody says, screw it. I'm going to put a little top spin on this. I'm going to put a little curve in this. I'm wondering,
movies are about conflict too.
I mean, so how do you, and I don't, again, I think of the two, and that's the thing, the Martian just wasn't that long ago. We know what a good space movie is, and so they're all being judged at that bar, and a lot of them are found wanting. In part, even the multiple accidents they have in space, and it's like, you know what? I don't think people understand just how big space is. There's a reason most spacecraft, no, not most, all spacecraft going to Mars have made it through the asteroid belt.
Because
well, wait a second. Is the asteroid belt between us and Mars, or between Mars and Jupiter?
Because the pilots are awesome.
the robot pilots, the robots. But even all the ones that go to Jupiter make it to Jupiter and then they fail, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's the 99% of all matter in the solar system is in the sun. The asteroid belt is barely a planet spread out over this incomprehensibly large space. So you have a thing on average every 100,000 miles or kilometers. Tomato, when you're dealing with these distances in 3 dimensions. So it's literally, we haven't mapped this? No. It's like, no, we're going to go, and if you see something coming, maybe steer out of it,
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I drove out to Steinbach today.
All right. Back to the comments. And folks, thank you so much for keep chiming in and having your own side conversation, because we're taking so long. Okay, here's Shashank kind of repeating his earlier comment, putting a little clarification on it. I think if this is Shashank saying, I think if this movie came out in any other year, he wouldn't get into it. But it coming out in 2020 meant it had some staying power. Seems kind of relevant. And that could very well be why I liked it as much as I did. Like I said, I watched it on Christmas morning. I'm a single man with no children. What am I going to do? Oh, well, it's on television. All right. Richard. Richard agrees with Shashank about, he says, at Shashank, yes, Chandler is the same character in all the roles I've seen him play. You know what? Whether it be typecasting or casting by choice, he's got a great look and can deliver a certain role. And that could very well have been what they cast. It's like, no, do the thing we know you can do. Thanks. not this film isn't about you, except when we make you the focus of the scene. Vlad 65. Richard, War of the Worlds was a Spielberg flick, and he really does have a thing about kids, dads in his movies. Oh yeah, you could say Spielberg, that's his whole oeuvre, really. Well, that and the MCU. MCU's got a lot of father-son dynamic there. Interestingly enough, it's in this movie, it's never about the daughter's relationship with the dad. You know, the actual daughter never brings him up, and not in a bad way or anything. Like, she has no issues about it. Obviously, the mother did a great job at raising her. You know, it's about his issues.
Sophie Rundle, what a monster. I can see how you avoid her. She, the actress who played the mother.
Yeah, Mrs. Sullivan. Old Lady Sullivan.
She's been in tons of English television and all over the place. But yeah.
All right, Shashank commenting, I was in the minority, but I didn't like First Man either. There you go. There you go, Jim.
It was very different. It was a very different kind of movie, yeah.
Well, and I'm wondering if some of that is about expectations. We're so trained to think of these people, it's going to be another heroic overcoming adversity to achieve greatness for the nation, you know, and for himself. And I have not seen it yet, but from what I understand, it really is more of a character study.
Yeah.
You know, all right. The Upside Dan chimes in. I haven't watched First Man yet. I liked The Martian. I haven't even watched Midnight Sky. Ha ha.
Okay.
Ha ha. Hey, you're warned, Dan. If you're still here, you're good. And you know what? In the end, there's only so much a movie can accomplish in a couple of hours. You hear enough from everyone else, you can contribute. Anyone can make an intelligent contribution because it's a movie. You know, it's not gene splicing. All right. Shashank. Apollo 13 is my favorite space film, followed by Interstellar. What are both of yours in the chat's favorite space films?
Do you want to leave that for that last hour or so? Or?
Yeah, I think, let's, we'll put a pin on that. We'll come back to that.
Sure.
Vlad. Yes, I agree with it. Vlad's, I totally get that. Vlad. Yep. Vlad saying to Shashank, I honestly confused Kyle Chandler with the late Robert Foster. Chandler could be his younger brother and plays similar character. You know, in the same class of characters.
The thing that you guys have in common also is a full effing head of hair. I just looked Chandler.
And thick. Manly hair. Could be a mane.
Son of a bitch. Forster too, right up until he died, full head of hair.
Yeah.
How do you have an unhappy date? No, I'm just kidding.
All right, The Upside Dan. I'm not a huge space movie guy. The Martian, Alien, and Aliens are his favorites. Wasn't crazy about Gravity. Okay. All right. Shashank talking about context, complimenting The Upside Down on his choices. Vlad goes, The Event, hated it. Lets us humans off the hook as it didn't show the consequences of what we did. Do we really want to do that with another planet? Sorry. Well,
good point.
And this, Jim, gets right to the heart of the whole Planet B BS. Mm-hmm. It's why I do think Elon Musk is a supervillain. But I'll say this now, and it will not be the last time I say it. I've thought it before, but I'm saying it now. if we cannot, I don't know where, and people really think this stuff. It's now just become kind of a standard thing. You don't even have to explain it anymore. People think, oh, of course we want another planet. We're going to need one. We're wrecking this one. And it's like, well, maybe stop wrecking this one. I'm blown away that, and people who should know better will talk about a plan B and how we have to get off the planet and spread our risk. And it's like, we can't manage ourselves on this one. How do you think that's going to work out? And you're selling something that the vast majority, I don't know where people think, well, we have to do something. And it's like, why would you do this? You're not going. I'm not going. None of us in this chat are going. We're not getting on that ship. You know, like it's insane. It's an insane fantasy.
Yeah.
And this one leans into it almost lazily. You know, it's like, oh, well, we got to find another place because, you know, we can't control ourselves here. What some are magically going to do it better somewhere else. F that bullshit.
Well, there's even a line where George Clooney's character of Augustine says, what does he say now? He says, we didn't take
care of it.
The planet while you're away. And he sort of says it in a jokey kind of way. But, you know.
But before they left, we were taking really good care of it.
Yeah.
All right. Richard, I was thinking the event must be nuclear war, given all the major cities that were radiation centers. Yeah, but they don't just give us something more than the event. Oh, well, we all got to go. A bit of a BS excuse on why there might be a kid with them to lead us away from the twist. Vlad did see Winnipeg and Vancouver. I think the chat is like 20 minutes ago in what we were talking about and has moved way ahead. All right. I got to whip through some of these things.
Go ahead.
Okay. Shashank, I felt that was some lazy writing on the part of the writers, not to mention what exactly happened. What do you think, Jim? Lazy or a choice?
I think it's, you know, you only have 2 hours. There's things you want to establish. And it's like the conversation we had about tone last week, is that you make a conscious decision to spend your time on either this tone or this fact. And I think it's a choice. It's a choice throughout. I'm just trying to think of other similar. Do we know what happened in The Stand? I think we do.
Yeah. In detail.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think. There are
Captain Trips. It was a flu. Started in a lab. Yeah. They were trying to weaponize it. It got out.
Yeah. I read that a million years ago, but there are other books and movies where they don't quite with the novel Station 11. It's a fast acting flu that goes through and wipes out everyone. That apparently is soon to be turned into an HBO series in the next.
No, it's already on. It's a CBS series going on now.
Station 11?
CBS All Access. You got to do the online thing, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, it's happening now. There's reviews of the second episode already out.
Okay.
All right.
This day and age, there's just so much to keep track of. It's kind of insane. But there are other ones.
Yeah.
But, I'll let you get back to the comments.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm not. It could have been lazy writing. Or lazy. Let's call it lazy storytelling if we're going to call it anything, because who knows? We don't get to see the script before it was locked, you know. So I'm always kind of nervous about picking one particular thing. I think if there's one of the tough things, and again, if you got that storyline in space and you don't keep that under control and keep that tight, you're. I think the storyline in space was the weakest one, but then it takes away time. Like you said, you gotta, all of a sudden you're giving over time to that. You gotta take away something from what I think was the A plot, Space was the B plot. All right. Shashank, excellent voice work for the younger version of the character. I suspect it was actually Clooney and they tweaked it.
Oh.
Yeah, I think they a little post-production work. Oh, but you know what? That would be something out there on the internet. Yeah. Ahmed says George Clooney creates an iTunes playlist and fills it with various cartoon soundtracks. Clooney tunes.
He got you again.
He's a good one. Yeah, but he gets a good one. That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, skipping that. Skipping the lulls. Nothing, no offense, guys, but, all right. Richard, regarding Ernest Borgnine and Gene Hackman. Saw it again a few years ago, referring to the Poseidon Adventure, and don't think it aged well. The remake starring Kurt Russell, however, is still unbelievably worse. I still have not seen the remake. I do remember the original as part of that great 70s era of disaster films, like the 82 airports that there were and everything. Yeah. All right. Shashank, a couple of movies reminded me of, apart from Oblivion, The Revenant and Castaway. Huh.
Oh.
Well, they're both like... how do you cope with the environment? That, and I shouldn't say it always is, but I think in a way it always is. Like, I think about The Wild with Reese Witherspoon, and she was not struggling against the environment. Like, the environment wasn't her key enemy. It was really, in some ways, her friend. Although she did have to overcome stuff. Yeah, it seems to be a very masculine-heavy storytelling genre, the man versus nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, but yes, if anyone knows a woman versus nature kind of narrative, chime in. It could be just, I'm not even, they're not popping up in my head. But I don't think Wild is that. Like, I think Reese Witherspoon and her journey through the wild. God, that was a good movie. Not a fan of Reese Witherspoon, but damn, I love that movie. Well, love's a strong word, but you know what I mean. World of War, War of the Worlds. Ahmed, is an apocalyptic space movie, isn't it? Good question.
It's verging there, yeah.
I think it could be. I think the most recent British remake is an apocalyptic or almost a post-apocalyptic. You straddle the whole invasion.
Yeah.
But yeah, Richard chimes in. Yes, great dad trope. Not just space movies, but wider sci-fi end of world movies. I believe referring to some of Vlad's earlier comments. Now, Jelly Duck. Oh, I get your point. What you're saying about aliens, but not the movie. Not 100% sure what you're saying. But we could figure that out. It'll dawn on me. I'm just kind of slow. Okay, Richard L. In the 1990s, a single tiny paint chip nearly took out a space shuttle windshield, so that space debris would have done far worse than this movie depicted. Oh yeah, it would have been demolished.
Oh yeah.
But you look at, we have created a bubble, or let's say a layer of trash around the planet, which, back to my supervillain comments about Elon Musk, he's adding to. There's going to be thousands of his stupid little satellites.
Isn't there one with a car in it?
Well, that's actually on a really long, it's basically now orbiting the sun as opposed to Earth.
Oh, okay.
I think it meets up with us in 100 years or something. Anyway, but yeah, you're absolutely right, Richard. Like, mind you, it is a space movie, but less of that. We could have had a different crisis. Or did we even need a crisis there? Could it have been them having existential conversations about what are we going to do? Them trying to make plans to figure out how they're going to manage this. That could have been the space conflict instead of, let's throw some space debris at them. The Upside Down. I don't know if it's a hot take, but I didn't like The Revenant. It was boring. Yes, Leo gave a good performance, but I feel like he deserved an Oscar for other movies he's been in. That wouldn't be the first time the Oscars went, ooh, I guess it is his turn. Well, this wasn't awful. Here you go. What do you think of that? Hot take or no, Jim?
A lot of people, I think, wasn't that the year that Birdman was up against The Revenant? Or am I thinking of the same director? Anyway, I think somebody said again, I'm not sure if I think we've discussed this before, whether it was the Birdman or Revenant. I think the quote was, best director doesn't, best directed picture doesn't mean the most directed picture.
All right. So, you know what? Shashank agrees with the Upside Down on The Revenant. Katie, I feel like blaring Sweet Caroline while doing important spacecraft repairs would be a poor life choice, especially put on by the guys in charge of it. This isn't distracting at all as you do fine work.
I was worried that they'd have that playing over
like
the
they're
desk
just some electrical workers, the job site.
I foresaw a violent death montage during that song. I thought, ooh, this is going to be weird. But the music stopped before they got hit by the meteor shower or wherever the hell it was.
Yeah. I'm sure it's a great way to show camaraderie in that. Like, I think when they do that, they have a different purpose. Mm-hmm. It's just that they could have done that. It was the better space movie, The Martian, used music regularly, but never at points like this. It was either part of the soundtrack or, he's working on something else, but he's not doing, anytime he was doing fine stuff, it was silent. You were with him doing his thing. All right. Yeah. Lost in the Reel. Sean, my friend, welcome. And so sorry it took us this long to get to you. Active chat. All right. The Upside Down, right there with you. The Revenant was beautiful to look at, and Leo was great, but whew, what a slog to get through. It's like our chat's reviewing a whole other movie.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like they've checked out already. They're like, we never really watched the one they're talking about. Let's just go on our own. That's okay. Awesome.
That's cool.
All right. Speaking of which, Lost in the Reel, great. Another great review and comment channel. Go check them out. Sean's a good guy. And Sean, if you're still here, hope you are, you're going to like our announcement at the end on what we're looking at next week. All right. Richard, back at Katie. Fortunately, this movie did not depict any harm to babies. No babies harmed. Even the child gets through. Part of the reason I got quite misty. All right. Okay. So back and forth. Thank you very much, Richard. Richard L., one of the, as you see in the end credits, the Balmoral Street research irregulars. Asteroid Belt is between Mars and Jupiter.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Richard. Okay. Shashank. There's something about the movie which made me want to watch it alone on an island. I had a similar feeling with Gravity. Didn't like the movie, but portions of it clicked. No, I'm buying that. Mm-hmm. It's, again, there's like, and especially something like this where it really is in a way you got two storylines. And it sounds like we're all in agreement that the space storyline was the weakest, and then, again, maybe there's, let's say, some storytelling choices made it fat. And they could have brought a little more, or maybe just made a tighter movie.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jim, on that?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I watching this on Netflix. They have that option when you slide your cursor along the there's a little line that sort of represents the length of the movie, and when you slide your cursor, it gives you a little thumbnail of each scene you're going through. And the last 25 minutes after I finished, I sort of went over it, and 2/3 of it was the folks in space.
Wow.
And there's a little bit of George Clooney's character, Augustine, and then it went back, and it ended on them, and it just sort of faded out as they did sort of, again, a kind of a graduate ending where they just kind of go, okay, what now? Looks like
I guess
it's just us.
Back to work.
Right, and then they sort of, he grabs her hand for a second.
Yeah.
And they go, okay, oh yeah, I got to refresh this, and I got to do that. And they do their own monitor stuff. And then he takes off.
They got work to do.
Yeah. And
they got to run a ship that was designed with 6 crew members. Now they got 2. And a baby on the way. Now there, again, this it's weird fantasy. They will start anew. No, they're going to die alone. It's going to be awful. F it up. Okay, Vlad, I got to push back here. Vlad65 comments, I think the Sweet Caroline scene really didn't work for a film set in 2049. No. Neil Diamond, timeless.
No.
Timeless. Hashtag Neil Diamond timeless. And now, although I haven't released it because I'm a terrible producer, Jim. Jim and I did a whole thing on, guilty pleasures. And I feel awful about this, you guys. One of my guilty pleasures is, for crying out loud, honestly, it is The Big Bang Theory. But one of its most redeeming moments, it had this weird storyline, all the characters being just terrible, atrocious to each other, except 2 of them who find their mutual love of Neil Diamond, and every time they're on screen, it works, and they're just such a joie de vivre and everything. It's like, it's even the most awful television can have moments of not just brilliance, but kindness and loving kindness. Just, mwah. That's a chef's kiss moment. So yes, Vlad, I got to push back there. All right. Okay. Then Shashank saying to Jelly Duck, complimenting each other. Excellent. And seeing each other's work. That is awesome. Okay, Vlad says, hey, we're actually catching up, but Vlad says First Man is interesting because it defies the heroic leading man. Yeah, absolutely. It's not your standard. Okay, Armstrong was all about being an astronaut, and his family is a distant second. That's what we learned. When also just a quiet guy. We like our extroverts.
We
me being such a noteworthy counterexample to that.
As a family, we went down to Mount Rushmore as a sort of a summer trip a bunch of years ago, 2013, I think it was. And Neil Armstrong had died that month, and it was a couple weeks after, and we were sitting at whatever Holiday Inn we were at. There's a bit of a pool deck, and I sort of asked an older guy. He was sitting there, and I said, why are all the flags at half-mast? And he says, you're not from here, are you? And I said, no, I'm from Canada. He goes, well, we lost a great man this month. He sort of went on, and he sort of said, he went very far. His name was Neil Armstrong. And I thought, oh, that's kind of, well, I said, yeah, I know. I mean, we're just in Canada. We're not in, we're not on another planet, but it was kind of a sweet
we're not
moment.
From the moon.
Yeah. He wasn't being a dick about it, but he was just sort of, it was almost like a sort of a storytelling kind of moment. and it was kind of neat.
Okay, here I'm gonna change now. Lost in the Reel. Sean says, "What is everyone's favorite George Clooney film, whether he's starring or directed or both?" Let's strip that down. He's directed 5-6 movies, maybe 7 or 8. Does anyone? Most recent was Suburbicon, but he did Monuments Men before that. His first was that Chuck biopic, The Most Dangerous Man, or the.
I'm looking it up now. Films directed: Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Thank you.
Good Night, Good Luck, Heads, Ides of March, Monuments Men, Suburbicon, and Midnight Sky.
Do you think, guys, like as far as and Jim, I'll ask this to you and to everyone else in the chat, is this a movie? Is Clooney improving as a director, or is this because you could argue, as much as I enjoyed this film, as much as it got me in the feels, in a lot of ways, it's a pretty standard film. I couldn't say it's like Clooney does, like, I think, sentimental, hopeful, like in many respects. And somebody talked about Spielberg and the dad thing. He is derivatives to pejorative. I don't mean it that way, but he's definitely, I think, putting himself in that hopeful class of director. But yeah, can you really say it's like something where it's like, is he
capturing something, or is he?
Well, is he? Yeah, like, I mean, does he have a style? Does he have a? I was trying to kind of nail that down. And other than the subject material, the Suburbicon with the Coen brothers, helping write it, and that is totally not his usual MO.
And Leatherheads is a sort of a period comedy, kind of broad and wugga wugga a little bit, way more wugga wugga than this. But I'd have to watch several of them together. I think, I think he can benefit from a strong director that's not necessarily him. One of my favorite movies with him, although I haven't seen it in a few years, is Three Kings. And that was
but he did not, that's not his, like, he didn't produce it, didn't direct it,
just starred.
Like he was in it, he was a big name in it, like part of the, I suspect he had a producer credit as a big name, but
David
it's
O.
not
Russell,
like that jerk. That miserable prick. All right, Shawshank. I think what Hollywood movies since the 90s have done is condition our brains to think of space sci-fi films as big epics that are full of action. Calls it the Armageddon effect. I would push back on that, Shawshank. You got to look at Star Wars. And yeah, like space movies are so, even the more sci-fi, they're trying to be hard sci-fi, are still so affected by Star Wars, especially on that epic scale, that big scale. I think, and again, this is, I would argue actually this is barely a science fiction movie in some ways. It's really man versus nature and end of the world. It's not dealing with the science fiction idea. Like, what's the sci-fi idea? We do space travel. It's not that new. We do have, like, there's an existential dread about what we're doing to the planet, but they're not even really dealing with that. It's really about a guy trying to save his daughter, full stop, at the end of the world. It's the road.
Yeah.
Did
he know that it was his? I know he checked on the status of the spaceships and the missions that were on there. Did he know that was that a surprise to him, or was he sort of following?
No, he knew. I think that's the whole, like, he knew what he was trying to save was his daughter. That's why he was going there. always knew
clear
it
on that.
because he
Okay.
was here. Give me an update, and as soon as Ether's still at, he didn't listen to the rest of the list right at the beginning. He knew who she was. Like it's like Sullivan and my daughter. He knew.
Okay.
She didn't, but he did, and there's his psychological, and then it's almost like the ghost of the daughter who is, let's say, dead metaphorically, the child. He's haunted by her, which is part of what drives him forward to save the real daughter. Which I thought was a super poignant ending. Jeez, now I'm getting choked up. Like this was the good in this movie.
Well, to distract you a bit, another nice aspect about this movie was the internal lives of characters, and there's only one other real hint of it, unless I'm mistaken. But the Sanchez, the Spanish specialist Sanchez, he says, my daughter, I had a daughter, she died, she was 4, but when I can't fall asleep, I used to pretend that, daydream, essentially, that Maya and her were friends. Yeah. And they would talk about boys or school or whatever. Yeah. And so that sort of happens to be another daughter, but also sort of speaks to the interior life of people that isn't always talked about in these, in movies, but in these types of movies.
Yeah. All right. So back to the comments for a bit. Shashank says he liked Up in the Air and The Ides of March. Ides of March I have not seen. Have you seen The Ides of March, Jim?
Well, we talked about it for our political course there.
That's right. Yeah. For the election ramp up.
Yeah, I think it made
Looks like we're moving into a whole movie theme for a month or so.
Yeah.
Okay. Vlad, another movie in the genre that is better but smaller is Moon, directed by David Jones. Yeah. There, though, I think that's a science fiction movie. Moon.
Mm-hmm. I haven't seen it. It's on the list, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I haven't seen it either. From what I know, maybe we put it on the list. Put it on our list. Actually, we're gonna put a pin in that. Thanks for bringing it up, Vlad. Okay, The Upside Down. I'll have to watch more George Clooney films. So now that it's being asked, I haven't really seen many of his movies. He hasn't actually made a lot, like as a director. It is a handful. That might be. Oh, The Descendants, Lost in the Reel. The Descendants is definitely his favorite, and can't go wrong with the Ocean's films. Great. One of my favorite director quotes. Now, of course, I can't remember who directed Ocean's 11, 12, and 13. Thank you. In reference to Ocean's 11, because, of course, he's done great indie films, upscale indie films. But he says he's referring to, in a way, defending his choice to make this. He's like, sometimes you want a bonbon. And Ocean's 11 is a great bonbon film. The Descendants, less so. Could really, although it's a feel-good family film. Another film about fatherhood and being a husband.
The dean from Community won an Oscar for screenplay.
Jim Rash, yeah. A well-deserved one. I did like that movie. That was great. Although, mind you, do you think it'll stick with us in another 10 years?
Who knows? I mean, and the volume of stuff coming out too. I mean, we can. That's a whole other conversation. But,
for our next show.
Certain things stick around
for a year end.
Yeah, certain things don't. I find that there's still Lord of the Rings references all over the place.
Yeah,
but not necessarily other series, right? So.
Yeah. Okay, The Upside Down. I've only seen the female Ocean's film, Ocean's 8. Definitely watch at least Ocean's 11, I would say. As almost a throwback to a Rat Pack style. Great ensemble cast. Yeah, worth your time. Shashank agreeing regarding oceans. Lost in the Reel. So I'm assuming The Midnight Sky will not be shown up on a list of Clooney's best films. I don't know. This is kind of what I'm wondering about is how, I would argue that his films, he doesn't have any, wow, that was amazing. And then, oh, this was he doesn't have a hit or miss. This is all, I would actually call all his films ground balls. Mm-hmm. I think the critics and even the fans are too hard on this film. I'm not sure what they were expecting, to give it such a low score. Well, at the end, Jim and I always give our, hey, do we think it's worth your time? I might be foreshadowing it a little. That said, yeah, does he have a great film? I don't think he does as a director.
As a director.
Yeah.
No,
actually...
Yeah. Monuments, man, I looked forward to, but it sort of came out as a little bit flat, and...
Yeah, there is an airplane movie. Mm-hmm. To quote Shashank, to use Shashank's reference.
Great hook, great subject.
Yeah,
I read the book, and I think they tried to
came out with a puff piece.
Yeah.
It really was light, and maybe this is maybe we're discovering Clooney's directorial challenge. Mm-hmm. He wants to be. Because you don't want to be that director who's like, it's going to be all about my role. But this one really was about his role. You can have that B plot. We do need to know who the daughter is. Because she is the stakes. In the end, it's about saving those folks on the spaceship. His daughter. So we do need to know who they are. So much of it we didn't need, though. Just give us an idea, get us to like them, and then we know why, and then we're okay going back to something Shashank said earlier about rooting for him. You're going to root for him because you're rooting for who he's trying to save. Plus the little girl, the adorable little girl. All right. I'm not sure he's made any things where you can say, there's not enough there to put it in a ranking. I don't think Sean Chandler could rank them, or he'd rank them all as between 5 and 6, 5.1, 5.2. And this is best, a solid 6 out of 10, All right. The Upside Down. Wonder Woman just went up against a cheetah. Not quite sure what we're referring to in the chat, so I'm going to skip past that for a second, Dan. All right, what else do we got here? Vlad, Gravity was woman versus space disaster, referring to my question about that, And yeah, she did. That was the struggle. She was against that nature. She had to survive. Yeah. Thank you very much, Vlad65. All right. Richard answering a different question. Space movies like The Martian, Contact, Arrival, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Interstellar, though have some quibbles with each of them. Reasonably so. All right, keep going. Lost in the Reel. Okay, this is Shashank talking to Lost in the Reel. Not even close. He has done much better films. Shashank, I disagree with you. He has not. Sorry guys, sort of interject myself there. And we really have to say, we got to make a difference here, I think, in what he's directed and acted in versus other films he's acted in. You're comparing apples to oranges. You got to compare this, because he performed well in this. I bought him, but he directed this. Yeah, and this is above average for his directing, but is that saying much? Okay, Vlad65. Musk should listen to Space Junk by TiVo. Okay. Ahmed thinks Leo deserves more Oscars. I'm assuming Leonardo DiCaprio. Although, you know what? Maybe we'll get into this later. Jim, like in the season when we're getting up to Oscar date, but it's like, I don't know, does anyone deserve an Oscar? Let the body of work speak,
We'll
like
see.
that's, yeah.
We'll see. When they come out with the list, it usually crystallizes.
Oh, Richard's wondering about the loose end. The movie, did the movie ever address what the movie would be named? I assumed it would be by after the crew member who died. Yeah, Richard, I figured that too.
It's exactly what I put.
But I'm glad we didn't get that answer, though, Jim. I don't know about you, but it'd be like, it may have gotten cut because they're like, oh, that's really on the nose.
Yeah.
And we've been bopping that nose a lot in the space stuff,
Yeah.
Oh, looking forward to an announcement. As well you should. All right, Katie passes the baby test. Yes, it does. Oh, Katie also agrees with Vlad about Sweet Caroline in 2049. I don't know, it rhymes even. Timeless. Oh, Jim. Thank you, Jim. Thank you for support.
I should mention to Katie that I was thinking her when I was watching Christmas
Right,
Carol
Vlad?
on Christmas Eve. That lots of children in danger in this one.
All right, Shashank, I wouldn't be able to comment on that. Haven't seen enough of his films to comment. You know what? Yeah, check him out. Like, it is, he takes maybe not big swings, but he is, what was his second film? It was about Edward R. Murrow.
Good night and good luck or something?
Thank you. Yeah. Definitely worth watching. Shot in black and white. I want to say he shot it live, like live to tape, but it was live. Like, I mean, remembering in his own family's old television days, so it's kind of got a cool backstory. You see his politics in that. Good one to take a look at. Shashank, the chat has been lively today. You're absolutely right, Shashank. All right. Okay. Oh my goodness. We're getting to the, I feel like we're working on our homework, Jim. We're just forever behind. People will say, this will be the word of mouth. Oh yeah, Rob, Jim, they have this neat little show. Anyway, the chat's great. Okay. Lost in the Real. I don't think Clooney has created much of a personal style as a director. And it seems as if his films are getting progressively worse. Maybe. I keep thinking they're progressively right there in the middle band. Nothing breaks out. Nothing's truly awful. It's all just maybe, thinking out loud, Jim, do you think maybe as a filmmaker, he just plays it too safe?
I think at this stage, you sort of his career, he sort of kind of knows what he wants. Clint Eastwood, for instance, is famous for doing one take or two takes. It's like, you know your lines, okay, all right, action, cut, beautiful, time for lunch. And so,
well, how much is that is because he is a geriatric and he's like, okay, I really need that app now.
Yeah, it might be the stage at where he's at. I don't know. I think he probably knows what he wants, but yeah, some guys are sort of quick and dirty about it. Other people, have a big torturous process. He's certainly not Terrence Malick, for instance, but
no.
There's a journeyman aspect, I think, to his movies.
Well,
as a director.
like almost like a studio director.
Yeah.
I get hired. I make the movie. I get hired again because they all know I'll make the movie.
I'm at home by 5.
He doesn't have, yeah, but that's the thing though. It's not like he has to. You know, I'm comparing him unfavorably in this way to Ben Affleck, who I still resent over Argo as a Canadian. Mm-hmm. There is a guy who's like committed to making a quality film, and is willing to look bad, whereas I think George, like, it's all super, almost there's a Capper-esque vibe to his films, and okay, where are we here? Okay, we did talk about that. Okay, Vlad, I like Clooney as an actor, but I find him second tier as a director. As Jim says, he's better in films directed by others. Yeah, like his directing output is, as much as I still like this film, notwithstanding its problems. Oh, look at this. We got another congratulations from Restream. And that really is, folks, you know what? That is really thank you to you guys. And with that in mind, no good deed goes unpunished, right, Jim?
Yeah. No.
I think it's time to ask you all. Oh, wait, I can't believe I'm hiding that. Listen, it's time to ask you all, beg for the like, beg for the subscription, and then don't forget to ringy-ding that bell.
I'm like a Muppet. My head moves when my arms move too.
Do you remember in 30 Rock, they had like a whole episode where they would cut in and out of becoming Muppet characters, right down to the flop as they... Brilliant. And I think they every now and then they'd have a callback to that in later episodes. But there's that's right. It was how Kevin the Page would seize them all.
Oh, that's right.
That's how he sees them all. Yeah, it's like they're all Muppet characters. All right. Upside down. Wonder Woman against Cheetah. Against the woman against nature. Damn it, that was good. Now I feel like a schmuck that I didn't pick up the play. You're not picking up the play there, Jim?
Sorry, I was just I was just catching up with the messages. I was getting lost in the messages there. Okay. I'm trying to read, Rob. I'm just kidding.
All right. Okay, here, wait a sec here. Oh my goodness. Okay. Jelly Duck. I think George Clooney's got 7 films as a director. Yep. Vlad 65. Geez, we are 90 minutes into this and no mention of a little sci-fi space film called 2001. Not true. Somebody had actually mentioned it as one of their favorites. I believe it was Richard.
Oh, did he? Okay.
But I think, in a way, yes, they're both in space, but they're so fundamentally different films. I don't even think they're in the same genre. Like, I think the Western in some ways is the only one that is location, like a genre wrapped in location. Whereas this is, they're two different genres. Like 2001 is a science fiction movie. This is not a science fiction movie. Yeah. It barely, it has maybe a toehold, fingernails in science fiction, but is firmly within that man versus nature and father saving daughter, kind of movie, disaster movie in a way. Oh, another, very much a disaster movie trope, the father trying to save the daughter.
Yeah.
Never the son. Or rarely the son, I should say. Shashank. Vlad, I love that film. Quite hypnotic. Seemed to have inspired erections of monoliths across the globe. I read that wrong initially. Good one. Good point, Sheshik. Yeah, Vlad, I agree with you. It's not even not a true one. It's not a sci-fi film. Like, I think Oblivion was a sci-fi film. It had a sci-fi idea. This is, yeah, it's sentimental, but I'm not reading it as a pejorative. Like, I mean, there's room for that. Like, it is. It's still just about a guy trying to save his kid. Mm-hmm. That's the movie. Against nature. All that nature can throw against him. Sheshink, I do think the IMDb rating and the Rotten Tomatoes rating was quite hard on the film. Thank you, Sheshink. I am saying that as a person who didn't like the film. Oh, damned with faint praise. What did you think, Jim, about the reviews and the rating? Like, I mean, want me to put the summary up again?
No, it was kind of, it was almost sort of the opposite of, again, back when we had functioning movie theaters, whenever there was a movie that came out and the critics savaged it, they would always do those audience reaction commercials. Like they have the...
like just as they came out.
Oh, that was great. It's great for the whole family. Oh, I couldn't stop laughing, right, honey? And so this was sort of the opposite of that. Like yeah, I don't know. I think it's because it sort of has that, I think, underlying, it's 3 or 2.5 people left of the human race, and 2 guys voluntarily go down to get radiation poisoning. It's not the most hopeful ending, and I think people pick up on that. Yeah. And especially this year. Yeah, it does seem like a bit of a harsh a judgment on this movie. I mean, it wasn't my favorite movie of the year, but it had some definite good qualities.
That's some moments.
But yeah, I suspect it's almost a law that you have to have a hopeful ending. And even if you're listening to like bad news lectures on CBC, like the Masty series or something, every guy who's sort of reciting his essay, his hour-long essay, or every man or woman ends it in a hopeful note, even though the preceding 45 minutes all they've given you is bad news.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a rule that you have to have, and yeah, there is hope.
And a North American, and even more so an American, almost requirement.
Yes. Yeah.
No, that's a great point, Jim. I want to come back to that. Let's get through some of these comments, but I do want to come back to it. Okay. First of all, yes, Vlad, I believe he did. Live on TV remake of Failsafe that was on TV about 20 years ago. That was black and white and quite good. Yeah, and maybe I was mixing up the Good Night and Good Luck with this remake of Failsafe. Yeah, so Vlad, and it was quite good, but I think part of it was kind of a ballsy move. Now, I do want to go back. It's funny, that was a great point you brought up, and Sheshink brought about the harshness of the judgment, and maybe it was, and now I got to give him props, actually. Maybe it was, but maybe he is a bit more of he's a subtler, but it is a gutsy call to go, no, he's going to die. The metaphorical little girl ain't making it. No one's living. We don't even get to see the Mitchell character reunited with his family. We're kind of left to assume they didn't make it. They were just goners anyway. And you're right, that graduate moment at the end takes a little bit of that hopefulness away. And maybe it was an honest acknowledgement on screen of the fact that there are 2 people left. And yes, they have 1 kid, but they're probably going to all die. Humanity may have just died right then.
Yeah.
You know, there is no colony ship. There's a resupply ship, but not a colony ship. You know, no one's going to add to their little genetic pool. So, yeah, maybe it's more. And, yeah, you're right. We seem to be hooked on hope as a thing.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't have that requisite amount of hope, you know, like the audience can sometimes feel ripped off. Okay.
And they still have to deliver the thing, too. So, I mean, that's...
Okay. Shashank says, but incorrectly, this is not the last show. We are going to do a show on the 30th. More details to follow. But Shashank says, this is the last show of 2020, and I'd like to thank you for making this tough year special. Rob, it's been great getting to know you through the YouTube course and collaborating with you guys. And this is a one of two. Here's number 2 of 2. Has been great. I remember when I first watched the Five Bloods podcast and loved it. That was a great show, wasn't it, Jim?
I know it's on all these best of year-end lists, but whatever.
They're idiots.
Amateurs.
That's terrible. As I dive into the sentimentality of a father saving a little girl, saving his daughter. Okay, sorry. I remember when I first watched the Five Bloods podcast and loved it. I'll pin it in the comment afterwards for folks so that they know the podcast we're talking about. Here's to great 2021. Thank you very much, Shashank. The YouTube course has introduced me to a community of great people, a few of which, Lost in the Reel, Sean from Lost in the Reel, Dan from The Upside Dan, are here tonight. And yeah, it has been. I couldn't agree more with you, Shashank. Jim, you have anything to add on that wonderful sentiment from Shashank?
No, it's actually, it's been a lot. The experience of going online is a lot richer when you know the people that you're sort of communicating with, and they're not just sort of anonymous, trolls. It's actually quite the opposite. What's the opposite of a troll? But I don't know, a fairy,
a human being.
Yeah, a human. Yeah. That's right.
Well, you know what? There's the troll who's doing it for comedy, and sometimes they can be great. The one who chimes in, but what about those radioactive super tomatoes?
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. We've been blessed, Jim, with people who've joined us who are they're having an honest conversation. They're not, I saw a terrible hot take on Twitter where a guy was saying, Tom Hanks has never really been in a great movie. It's like, it's so, and even says, well, maybe those two, but the rest are meh. It's like, well, okay, you're just an asshole. You're an asshole saying something ridiculous to get traction,
Contrarian kind of superpower,
That has not been our folks at all. The great chatters. You know what? Willing to put out their opinion, willing to back it up. I think we've been really, really fortunate.
Yeah.
Lost in the Reel says, you do have a good point about his directed films being right in the middle, Rob. I think Dangerous Mind and Good Night and Good Luck showed some promise in the directing style, but the rest are middling. Yeah, no, that's yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, there's promise, and then all of a sudden, well, meh. All right. The Upside Down. 2001 looks amazing on 4K. I am sure it does. I've never seen it on 4K. I did, though, make a short film literally mimicking the first 3.5 minutes of the movie, except it was about coffee. I even secured the rights to, I got somebody, a local musician, to create Thus Spake Zarathustra for it. I may bring it on the show one of these days. Okay, Upside Down. Shashank, the YT course the YouTube course has been great for meeting this great community. We're all part of a great community, Jim. Makes me feel so good. Shashank, the Upside Down, it's been wonderful. Looking forward to see all our channels grow in 2021. More. Then Vlad 65. Okay. Rob, the film chooses the end of humanity as a canvas, having the surprise of who the Eve on the new Earth happens to have as a dad was, well, just self-indulgent. He directed the Goodnight movie. You know what? I think I want to read the book. I want to see what the book was. Was it a self-indulgent moment? Have they changed that much? I don't think they have, but you may have a point there. Or are you saying, Vlad, that he should have picked a different actor? Because I really do think that's so integral to the movie. Mm-hmm. Like his personal interest in this. I'm not sure you could have done it if it was just, well, I just want to save these people to save humanity.
There are some differences in the book. I don't want to, even though we're in the spoiler zone, it's a book's a spoiler zone, so I don't want to enter into that. But especially with her character, there's some differences. So.
Okay. Well, I'll have to check it out. I'll have to circle back. I'm going to put a pin in that, Vlad, and maybe comment it on a later show. You're kind of sticking with us for a little longer there, Vlad. It is what it is. Okay. Ahmed's got to go. Probably had to go half an hour ago. Ahmed, thanks so much for coming. And if we don't see you on the 30th, you have a great rest of the year. 2020 has been awful, but we can always have hope for 2021, eh? Oh, and Among Us, we are going to play that. Okay. Shashank chimes in. It's been a great movie watching weekend. I've seen 5 movies in the course of the past 2 days. Mank, Soul, Midnight Sky, El Camino, and Ack versus Ack. I'm not sure about that last one. Oh, Bollywood?
I
think it is Bollywood. I think I saw something on Twitter about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we get into our final thoughts, Jim, why don't we, I guess we got a couple of things to talk about. One is the 30th. Mm-hmm. Haven't even decided a time yet, but we are going to, Vlad 65's got to go.
Hey, Vlad.
Vlad, thanks for coming by, man. Thanks for bringing it.
Yeah,
that's awesome. The 30th, Jim and I are going to do, it'll be our end of the year wrap-up show. No particular movie to talk about. We're going to talk about the best, the worst, the crazy, and maybe comment some hot takes on some of the news that came out in film, maybe a few predictions. So hope you guys can make it for that. I'm kind of excited. Jim and I have been doing this for 8.5 months now. Mm-hmm. Like we're coming up on our 9th month. Oh, excuse me. And then I think, Jim, do you want to? Here, let me make sure I'm ready for this. Jim, do you want to introduce? We made a bit of a change in our programming. Do you want to introduce our next movie for January the 3rd?
Yeah. Sorry, I was just improving my posture as I was about to introduce the movie. The next movie is a French production. No, I'm sorry. Not a French production. That's right.
What are you talking about?
Tenet. Aha! It was a joke. No, we are watching Tenet, which would appeal to several other people that are in our conversation today. A specific request. So, partially shot in Estonia, which I'm looking forward to. But yeah, so we're doing Tenet.
Yeah. It's interesting. What we're going to be doing. The first couple of weeks of January, we're looking at what I would call travel films. And this is a time travel movie. After that, we're going to be looking at another film that's also kind of travel oriented. I know that we can't travel, but we do have access to subject matter expert, and hopefully, and by hopefully, I know she's going to she will be joining us on the show to co-host at least one of these to talk about travel and how we relate to it, how we remember it, that kind of thing. I am actually, Jim, I'm thinking I might even ask this mystery guest if she'll join us for the for even Tenet, because it is a travel movie. It really is about time travel. It's about what's that?
I was so looking forward to the next one that I personally traveled through time. That's what threw me off. So. That's my
there
story.
You go. All right. Back to the chat briefly. Okay. Look. All right. Actually. Fine. Okay. You know what? We'll do. We'll let's blow through the chat. Blow through the chat. Folks, every one of your comments is important. We're not blowing through anything. But we'll go through the chat and then we'll get final thoughts. Okay? All right. Hallelujah from Sean at Lost in the Reel. A man who does want to see us talk about Tenet. A man who perhaps wants to talk about Tenet himself. All right. The Upside Down, also excited to talk about Tenet. Sheshank, looking forward to it. You guys have done some amazing work. Well, thank you very much. We're really, Jim, I'm really kind of amazed. We've accomplished what we've accomplished. This has been great. Okay. Oh, and another one. Yes, looking forward to Tenet. All right. And of course, it sucks that I haven't been able to watch it on the big screen. I'd been eagerly awaiting to watch it, and the pandemic hit. Yeah, no, I perhaps, and you know what, maybe Sean, I'll reach out to Sean. Sean, I'm going to reach out to you on this. You know what, maybe I'm going to reach out to you. But yeah, Sheshank, same with me. It's we're watching it streaming, eh? And you and I will connect on that outside the show as well. All right, Jim, what's your Richard's asking where's Tenet available. It is available on Google Play Movies. It's probably the priciest thing we've ever recommended because you kind of have to buy it right now, although that usually changes pretty quickly, and it might happen as early as January 1st. Don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure. Actually, I'm not sure at all. I live in a fantasy world of hope that prices fall. All right. Jim, where was I? Your final thoughts.
Yeah.
What do you
further to the science fiction or space favorite space movies, or science fiction in this case? I know we didn't get to our own, but my favorite, especially most recently, was probably District 9. That was just a dynamite movie, and you know, it was all kinds of things. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Mm-hmm.
Another good one too is set in space, Galaxy Quest. I think that's maybe been
that was a great movie, yeah.
Alan Rickman, amongst others, in a bit of an ensemble. But yeah, just a fantastic movie. No, this one's you know, it's if you're a George Clooney fan, it's pretty good. It's, you know, an interesting movie, especially for 2020. Yeah, I would say it's worth watching. But yeah, I'd say it's worth watching. Not perfect, and there are some issues, but yeah, not a bad addition. But yeah, what do you? And obviously, Rob quite loved it. So,
well, I'm not going to say I loved it. Like I'm with everyone on a lot of the criticisms of the space stuff, and I definitely see a lot of people's points here. I just really got into the Clooney storyline and of him trying to save this little girl who ends up, spoiler alert, being his daughter actually on the ship. And I thought that was handled well, and it was a nice little, adds poignancy and also saves the little girl. Because I was like getting hard that, well, they're going to do something. Yeah. It's not going to be just, okay, now, sweetie, I'll just hug you as we die of asphyxia, whatever, you know. Here, you can be eaten by wolves because the dialysis is, I haven't been getting my treatments, or
the craft dinner's that way.
Try not to set yourself on fire like you did before. Yeah, I liked that. I got into it emotionally. You know, so I would say, yeah, it's worth your time, but I'm not, oh God, you must see this movie. More I think it is. I think you got to be understanding, and this, you know, going to something Vlad said, a lot of people said, it's not a science fiction movie. Don't expect Armageddon or even Deep Impact, because actually in some ways this reminded me of Deep Impact. It's not that. It ends on a poignant note, not on a hopeful one. There is no, you know, there's maybe some rebuilding, but you know, it's like dawned on them. Like that last moment, I'm not sure it was quite, it evokes The Graduate, but I suspect it's as much oh wow, we're in the shit now, we're alone. Like, can you imagine? I'd be like, wow, we're truly alone. We're not out on a mission, we're alone.
Yeah.
Like alone. So yeah, yeah, but yeah, I'd still say, yeah, it's worth your time. It's on streaming, you know, worth an evening. Have be open to it and have the tissue box ready. That's my take. There's my hot take, folks. All right. Okay, Jim, you'll hang out in the green room while I push us out here. Folks, again, thank you all so much. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Katie. Thanks, Shashank. I know you've left already, but thank you so much. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Vlad. You've gone already, but you never know. You might come back to catch the last couple of minutes. Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you all for popping in, for bringing your A game, making our chat one of the best. You know what? And having your own, as Jim said, you're like community. You're having your own side adventures. You know, not even side adventures, just your own adventures. Thank you all so much. And yeah, I think with that in mind, I'm going to say catch us on the 30th, time TBD, probably going to be 8:30 Central Standard Time, but we'll get out on Twitter. Speaking of which, follow me on Twitter at Rob Christensen or Jim at JHLeboyko. Yeah, I think that's about it. Let's take down this music and cue the credits.
I've been in your